My name is Steve Jordan. I work with Core Cloud Systems, kind of the specialist and also the designer of the software. Today, we're going to talk about a little bit of an intro into what Core Cloud Systems is, and then we're going to move into credit card reconciliation. And as we get started here today, I want to thank you guys for coming, and I hope this proves to be a product that y'all would be interested in. So just to kind of tell you a little bit, if you haven't taken on a Core Cloud presentation or have not seen Core Cloud, um, we decided we decided to develop the product so that we could basically deliver to our clients an added platform that kind of centralizes all the things that a construction company might do in the field. We mobilized it. It's built on top of a portal. We built a rapid development engine so that basically we can deliver to the user, which is yourselves, the ability to create applications and send them out to your field as in the form of a mobile platform. Uh, the rapid development engine that we developed also gives us the ability to write custom solutions. So that basically what you're going to see today is how we took the credit card form and we grew it into a custom solution for credit card and expense processing. And that's what today's session is going to be on. We went through and when we built the system, of course, we had it set up, and these are our four core features. The form design is the first step in the process because most applications that you have in the field start out with a form. So what you have here is the ability to build your own forms and put those on workflows so that basically what's going to happen is that it will take that and then process that information that's on that form. And then, of course, you'd be able to report on that form and do different things with the information that it collects. And that's the premise of Core Cloud. We deliver the system out of the box. Even if you just buy credit cards solution, you're getting all of the forms that we have built and deliver. So you can capture these forms out in the field. What you're going to see today is a combination of the credit card receipt form functionality along with our credit card reconciliation module. And this is an extension solution, just like payroll is an extension solution for employee timesheets. This is an extension solution for the credit card reconciliation program. I'm going to back out of here and jump into a quick slide, and then we'll actually get into the software so that you can see how that works. Um, the credit card solution is really unique. When we looked at how some of our competitors actually do credit card processing, we recognized right off the bat that there's a better solution. So we feel like we have kind of built a new solution that we feel like makes better sense for construction. A lot of the solutions that are out there don't do job costing and they don't do integration very well. Of course, our core cloud system is completely integrated to your Sage systems, whether it's 100 or 300, and it makes the facility and the processing a much better situation. We start out, of course, with a receipt capture, and this is where, in our best practices, we feel like if I can give my guy, when he uses his credit card, just take a picture of the receipt. You can put it in your gallery or you can process the form right then and there. But basically, I want to get him to where I can capture that receipt immediately or at the end of the day and have him submit that receipt into the office. Now, he may not do anything more than just capture the receipt and give me a little bit of data. And then we submit that into the office where it might get coded. Or he might write what he did on the receipt, take a picture of the receipt, and then fill out the information and then push it in to where it can come into the office for that coding process. Or the person could actually code the receipt. So you can actually come through with our credit card system, and that allows that user to basically take a snap of that receipt and then crumple it up and get rid of it because now it's not sitting in his wallet, it's not sitting in his pants pocket where he loses it. So the receipt is captured, it's preserved, and it gets submitted into the system. Now, our reconciliation component, we have various methods of doing this. And you'll see this as we go through the presentation. We have various methods of approval. We have various methods of integration and reconciliation. So you'll see how all this is going to work in real time. But we actually pass it into our reconciliation program where we download the transactions from the credit card companies and be able to reconcile the receipts with the credit card transactions. Now, this will give you full editing capabilities so that you can go in and make changes and do things to get that right, so that when you get ready to push this over, if you're using our TimberScan product, it's going to automatically create the accounts payable entry so that it's going to take and put it into your AP workflow, and you won't have to double enter that. And then you have the choice of 3 options. You can either put them in on a receipt by receipt basis, you can do it as a summary off of the credit card holder, or you can put it in as a one big statement with all the details. So we give you that ability to kind of take that process from the point of receipt all the way through to getting it into AP and pushing it into the Sage products, and you eliminate about 80% of the process. If you're right now today, if you're downloading those into a spreadsheet, manipulating them, getting all that approved and all that process, I can cut out about 80% of that time just by virtue of this process. So when you consider what the return on investment here is, that's what you're going for. Now, one of the things, just to show you how simple it is, I've got this little video I'm going to show you where you can see filling out a receipt. It's very, very simple. This is a phone. You can download the credit card receipt front end from the website. That's the icon right here. And you'll notice right when you go into the software, it's got big buttons, easy to use. And I think that's what you want to take away from here. This is me filling out a receipt, and I'm just going through. And then when I hit the date, it's going to pop up at what we call a date modal, and that allows me to select the date of the receipt. I can then, if I have multiple cards, it knows that I have that, so I can pick which card I use. The vendor, I can type here or dictate. You'll see me dictate in just a minute. As I'm typing here, if you have any questions, if you'll go ahead and chat that question, I'll monitor my chat and get back with you at the end of the session, and then we'll open up the unmute, and then we'll talk about some things at the end as well. Notice here I dictate, so I touch my little microphone button here, and it's going to go through there, and I'm going to dictate what I did. Now on the cost codes, it also has a lookup. So everything is what we call entry point validation. Now what you're noticing right here is I'm capturing their receipt immediately. So all I have to train my guy in the field to do is basically get it focused. And so at the end of the day, if it's focused and everything's done, he submits it, it's a done deal. That now comes into the credit card reconciliation program, and that's where we'll take it into the software from there. So you can see right away, very simplistic, very easy to do. The forms can be designed so if you need just general ledger coding, we can do that. Now, I'll take a side note off of this. If you're using Sage 100, in the Sage 100 world, they actually have their own reconciliation program. So what we do there is we actually take the receipt and eliminate that data entry right there in Sage 100, and we can push it straight into that particular area. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the software, and this will give you an example and show you this in real time. If you noticed right away when I generated that transaction, now in the website, now this is not our mobile app, in the website, I can use the website and it scales itself to whatever device you're on. So if you're using an iPad or if you're using something that the desktop or whatever, you can scale it to whatever you're using, and it's going to, it's like a chameleon. It's going to fit to whatever device you're using. So in this particular case, you can see right here, I'm going to come in and do a credit card form. So I may come in here and I'm just going to do a simple, easy to use card. So notice right here, I come in, I select this. I can, since it knows who I am, in my demonstration, I have to key this in because I have multiple people using this. But if it knows who I am, I don't have to even ask this question. The vendor, again, let's say this is Podna's. That's a barbecue place here in Baton Rouge. Let's say I spent $20 over there, and it was a lunch with a client, lunch with John. Okay, now at this point in time, since I'm on my desktop, it's going to launch into where I can go grab a receipt. So I can go pick up that receipt and drop it right in here. Now, if I'm on my phone, it's going to actually launch my gallery, or it's going to launch my camera. So you can pick it out of there and take that picture. When I get over here to my coding section, this is where I may not know how to code this. So I could then just go ahead and push this in without the coding, and it can be picked up later down the way. If I know the coding, then I can come over here, and let's say I'm on the Northwest job, and this is 20, pick this, this is $20. I can distribute it to multiple codes. I'm just going to pick up my cost codes here. And then at this point in time, when I submit this or route this, I can take care of, I'm done with what I need to get done. Now, I'm going to show you two processes. The first process is the route function. So if I wanted to pass this receipt as an individual transaction, I come in here, and this can be an automatic route, but I'm going to go ahead and do this manually. So I'm going to come in here and route this. And what this does is this now sends an email to that person, and it's going to go in and ding him and say, hey, in your inbox, I have a credit card receipt I need you to review. So he would log in over here. He would sit down here. He would open it up, or she would open it up, would kind of review the coding and say, yeah, this is okay. I'm okay with that coding. And then they could sign off on it and then submit it. So that's one method of approval. So that particular receipt can come in. It can go to your department head or to the project manager. They can code it, approve it, or just approve it. But they're actually seeing the actual form itself. So when they come in here and visually look at that particular form, they have all the information in front of them. What we found out to be a problem with this is that if you have a lot of credit card receipts, like 50 or 60 a day, and we have some clients that really do, a project manager could have 4 or 5 jobs, and he's got guys using credit cards. So what we did is we said, you know what, we're going to give you another form of approval, and that is a approval grid. And that's where they would log in here, and instead of being dinged every time a credit card transaction came in, they would just come over here and they would go in and look at all the credit card transactions that are here. And this tells them here that they have that it's already been entered and coded. So I can come in here and drop down here and look at the coding. Now I can do this on a phone. So this is mobilized, so you can do this on a phone. We use a special interface that allows you to roll around the screen so you can see all this information. And you can see there, you can do that. You can edit that transaction. If you don't like the way it's coded, you could edit it. You can also go in here and review the form itself and edit it here and drop a signature on here. So we give you a couple of different functions on how you can go in and approve it. You can also come down here and say, in this particular case, this one needs to actually be coded out. So when they come up here, you can see this is in red. So as I go down through here, I can code this to a commitment. I can code it to a job. And all of this is tied into your Sage products. So as you go through the process of coding through here, it's all basically here and ready to go. So what you're seeing right away is the fact that as you go through the coding process and you get down to here, let's say I'm going to come in here. This is 2778. And once I add that transaction in here, then what's going to happen is it's going to actually take that transaction and it's going to balance itself off with this and set this to 0. Now I've got some issue here for some reason or other. But I won't go any further. But that's how you actually code the transaction, and then this gets in balance, and then it comes down here and it actually checks off the transaction. It's ready to go. Now we also included at this point an approval function, so that basically as I go through here and I look at this transaction, I can just click this button and then it approves that particular transaction. So so as you go through and you see this is another method of approval. Now, while I'm in this screen, I'm going to show you this over here as well. So basically what you have on expense reports, you can build an expense report form, and the same screen that they use to approve credit cards, they can come over here and approve the expense report. Now, the difference between this one and this one is this. This actually goes to the reconciliation program to be matched up and matched to the statement. this actually goes automatically into TimberScan. And this same screen right here that we use for handling expense reports, you could have subcontractors submit their pay apps through here. You could have sub vendors submit their invoices through here. So that, like, I'm working with a property company today that basically they get their invoices at the properties, and they want the properties to come in here, attach the invoices in, code them up, and then when they submit them here, accounting is going to review them. And once they're reviewed and approved, it's going to post over into TimberScan, and there's no double entry. So what it allows us to do is use this invoicing function, and this is actually integrated to the TimberScan front end as far as the AP entry to eliminate that particular transaction. Whereas the credit card is a little different in the fact that it actually has it set up to where it's going to go to the reconciliation program. So two methods of approval. Depends on the volume. It depends on how you like to do this, but we're trying to give you a lot of options. When you buy our software, we're going to try to match it to what you do. Now, one of the things that you're going to find also is that we just did a system where the customer wanted to be able to generate a PO for that credit card purchase and wanted that charge to go to a vendor as opposed to going to the Amex vendor, which is typically how you do an AP entry for a credit card. They actually wanted it to go to the vendor, and then they would go and pay that vendor whenever they got their statement in. So what we did is we added the commitment process here, and we added a little bit of functionality on the front end so that these transactions now will flow in straight in, more like AP invoices, but we're doing it through credit card, where it's going to go into the TimberScan AP entry, fully coded, connected to the PO, and it's going to eliminate all the data entry, the header and the line distribution, because we were able to read that commitment. And so you can see right away you have some really some powerful features here in building a work component or work process that's going to complement the way that you do your credit card processing. And that's why we tell people that we can really reduce the amount of time that we spend on that. Let me take a couple of questions. Here we have, let's see. Are you able to do the approval through TimberScan after the receipt has been pulled in through the app, or do you have to code route through the website? You can actually push it into TimberScan as an incomplete transaction and do all the coding and the routing there. That is one of the options that you have when you build it. So yes, to answer your question. When in the field and you want to change or charge a purchase to a job, do you get all the open jobs or just the jobs restricted for? Yeah, this basically it's the way Core Cloud is set up. It's job centric. So when you set up that foreman, you put him on those jobs, and so when he looks at the jobs, he's only looking at jobs that he works with. So it does restrict that. Also the codes and the vendors. So when you're using Sage 300, you have the ability to be able to filter by job, and that's what I think you're asking for in that question. Great, guys. I appreciate the questions. Okay, so this kind of gives you the idea here. Now, I will stop here and tell you about a new feature. I don't always like to talk about features, but it's really fixing to be released. We have really looked at our competitors, and we recognize the Concur method of processing is a valid way of handling credit cards. So what we have in this particular screen is we now have an automatic connection to your credit card company that it will, every time a transaction comes into the system, it's going to download that transaction into the grid. And then your cardholders are going to come in here and process those transactions from here. So that basically what's happening is that we're going to proactively pull down the transaction, and then the the cardholders just come in here and they attach their receipts. They do what they want to do, to get it coded. And then basically from here, they can push it in. And on the reconciliation side, it's a little simpler because since we're validating every transaction, sometimes you don't even have to go through reconciliation. You can just go ahead and pass that stuff right into TimberScan to get processed through to Sage. So this is going to be the new methodology, and what we're trying to accomplish is we want to give our customers all the options. That's how we built Core Cloud Systems. We look at our competitors and say, how do you do it? And then we just build it into Core Cloud. So that what we're trying to accomplish when we design the system is I wanted to be able to give you a tool that not only for credit card processing, but for everything else that can adapt to the way that you do business versus having you adapt to the way that we do business. And we're seeing some really, really great opportunities and some great ideas as far as workflows that we've been able to adapt our core system to. So let's now go through, and I'm going to kind of go into the credit card program. And this is the reconciliation side. This is again, this is one of the areas right now. Let me make this bigger. I'm sorry. That we have where when you set up the employee cards, this is where you go in and do that. You set up your card suppliers here, and this is the interconnectivity that you have between your, Visa, your MasterCard, or your American Express. This is, in this case, once you set this up, it's very simple. You then come in here and you import the file. Now, this is the part right here that we're automating so that you don't have to actually do this. But in today's world, until we get that released, you have to manually import that file. So you would download the file and import it. And then that file drops itself into our grid. And the way our grid is established is that this is the transactions that came down from your credit card company. These are the transactions that got submitted by the forms. Now, you can put things in place here and look at it. The first thing you would typically do is say reconcile. And everything that it could reconcile, it comes down here and puts in the bottom. Okay? Now, once you get this to that point, then you're starting to look at the individual transactions. If your guys did a good job, you might not have many things on here. But the first thing you're going to do is you're going to look at this and say, you know what, I don't have any transactions for this particular charge. So you ding the guy that has the card, or the person that has the card. And in this case, Rebecca is going to get an email with a form and say, hey, I need you to tell me about this transaction. If you have your receipt, attach it. If you don't, tell me what you spent it on. So you get a good audit for that. And then when they resubmit it, it comes over here, and that's where you can come in here and reconcile that transaction against this charge. If you come in here and let's say you have an issue with this and you want to edit, you can come in here and literally drill down to the actual transaction. So you can see right away that basically if your folks in the field are not so diligent about coding, or you don't like the way something's coded, you could come in here and change that right here, and before you actually push it over to TimberScan. But once you've worked out all the transactions and everything is in here that basically has been reconciled to the statement transactions right here, then you transfer this to TimberScan. And in TimberScan, you have several options of how you want to consume that transaction. The first option is I can give it to you on an individual receipt basis. We do that a lot of times where we process on a weekly basis so that we can get that cost in there quicker. We can also transact it on a summary basis where each card holder has a summary transaction and it goes into the system with, sorted, summarized by job coding or by general ledger coding. We can also send it over there by cardholder in detail. So those transactions are automatically generated, and all the support paperwork that goes along with it automatically knows what to do with itself. So on the receipt side, if it's a lot of receipts, we may send that into AIM and store those receipts and attach it to that transaction. If it's not that many receipts, we might just combine them all together and push it in as one big document. But this is where the customization on the credit card side works. This is the one piece that we have to do that we kind of make it the way that you want it to work. So this transaction right here, pushing the TimberScan, is for the Sage 300 world. In the Sage 100 world, a lot of folks don't use this. They just basically do the credit card receipt from the grid straight into where you would actually enter the credit card information in Sage 100, and you would use the Sage 100 feature to do that transaction. Let's see. Any other questions? Okay, show again how the credit card statement comes in. All right. The credit card statement basically comes in like this. Is that the first thing that wrong spot. When you come over here, you basically set up the card supplier, and this is where we build the different card suppliers, and we have a standard format. And when the statement comes in, and this is what we're automating, by the way, that all you have to do is when you download Amex, you would just put that in on a spreadsheet. You just take those transactions and put them in the order of that particular format. And then here, when they get there, they just go and import the file. And you just select where it is, put in the description, hit select, and then it goes in and it reads that file into here. And then from here, you just double click on it and it drills down to the transactions. All right, when you do transfer to TimberScan from reconciliation for Sage, can you do that as an individual transaction instead of a summary? Yes, that's one of the first methodologies there, because what we're finding out, especially when you're doing a lot of transactions that are cost related, there's several strategies that you can take. We can actually take and push the receipt. Like we have a client that runs about $1 million a month through their Amex, and they have just tons of transactions. It's a national painting company, and what they do is they go ahead and transact each receipt like it is an invoice. So what they do is this thing comes into our credit card, our financial section. It comes in through here, and as they approve these transactions, okay, they're getting sent into TimberScan as an invoice. And then what happens is when the meeting when it comes down and the credit card comes in, we reconcile the two together, and then that way they go in and they just select all of the payment processing because they got a whole bunch of invoices in there. But those have already booked the cost and they're already showing up in their cost code. And then when the statement comes in, they run it through reconciliation, and then once everything's reconciled and they figured out that they've gotten all the transactions in that they're part of that statement, then they just go in and they select for payment all of those invoices that came in and pay them with an Amex card. So there's different strategies on that, but yes, you can push in the individual transactions like that, or you can actually handle those on a periodic basis from the reconciliation program. All right. Let's see. What does our credit card company need to have for us to be able to download the statement? How do we know if we are able to download into Core Cloud? I would tell you this: if you can download, we can get it into Core Cloud. I mean, we do MasterCard, Visa, and Amex and Discover. So we've done all of those 4 cards. Some of those come through the bank. If your bank's not providing you with a download file, it's going to be difficult. But 99% of the time, they're going to do that. So at the end of the day, I just think that you're going to be able to download those credit card transactions. I would go to my bank and say, hey, look, I'm doing this, even, and go from there. Because even if you were going to use what we call our concur method, you would still have to have the ability for us to tie into the bank. So that's where I think most of these credit card companies are in a position to do that. Can an admin user go in and approve invoices that a project manager might not have time to get in? Yeah, that's really kind of cool, because as an admin, you see everybody's. If it's a project manager, he only sees his. So when you come to this grid, you can see whether or not it's been approved or not. So if this thing comes in and you can see that it's been coded, but it hasn't been approved, and see the approver's name would be up here. In this particular example, I don't have that, but you could see that. You could ding him, and if he was on vacation, you could just come in here and approve that transaction for him. So what we designed it for, you got to appreciate, my background is operations and accounting. So when I build my software, I make sure that the accounting department or the folks that are actually managing the processing have a global view, so that you can see what's going on out there. That's one of the things when you look at mobilization of information. The one piece of that a lot of companies lose is the fact that accounting needs to know what's going on out in the field. So if you start moving some of this data entry out into the field, you've got to be able to manage that data entry. And you've got to know when those things come in, so that if it's stuck over in somebody's box, you can go in there and ding them and say, hey, I need you to get this in. So almost every application we ever build, we start from the back end and go forward. So yes, to answer your question, that is probably one of our competitive advantages of these approval grids when you start looking at other systems. Um, as far as the general aspect of the way that we handle our credit card systems, when you look at credit cards, you also want to consider expenses, because you can build an expense form, and especially if you're doing expense reimbursement and you're running those through accounts payable, those items can come in and basically be handled just like a credit card receipt. And we think a best practice on expense distribution is where the minute that the expense is generated, go ahead and take a picture of the support, fill out the information, route it over to your guys for approval, and then bring it into accounting, and then we can take it and automatically drop it into TimberScan and process it. And there's no more data entry unless you want it to be that way. So this allows you now to handle your expense transactions, your credit card transactions, all in a single interface. And this is probably what I'll leave you with today, because I think when you consider the functionality that we have with what Core Cloud does, all you got to do is teach them one face, one little ecosystem here. And then we can deploy all sorts of different forms, processes, and everything else. So you kind of get them trained up on this user interface. And then as you integrate forms for maybe payroll, subcontractor pay apps, purchase order processing, as you start implementing those things, you'll notice that it's all the same system. So it's going to be a much easier train to get your guys into using this. The other thing that I want you to understand is that can take away from today is the investment. When you look at the investment, we're going to truly carve out at least conservatively 50% of the time you spend on processing credit cards. But what you're going to have is just with that investment, when you invest in the basic Core Cloud system, you get all the other stuff. You know, we don't just sell a credit card system. This is, you get Core Cloud, and credit card is just one of the components of it. And it's an add-on price. But what happens is that it allows you now to be able to not only do credit cards, although that might be your first step, but you can also take it into daily reports, HR forms, safety forms, any form that you generate in your company. You now have a tool that you can use to go and build and mobilize those particular forms. Let's see here. As far as the approvers go, could the transaction be summarized by project for PM approval so the PM is not inundated with the invoices to be approved, assuming each receipt is brought in as its own invoice? We could not do that. If you're going to want that, I would do my grid first. That's why we built this grid, is so that your project managers would come in here, log in, they would click on this button here, and this would only show them the credit card transactions that came in from that for their jobs. And then once they approve them here, they don't really need to see them again. So you can get those into AP and just process them through final approval and get them booked into the system. That's why we built this screen, because TimberScan today, not that I don't think it can group those transactions. Although I would tell you this, the methodology that we use for approval of invoices, you could throw it up in the grid and use the grid view and just go click, 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 as they go through the process. But if you had something in front of there for the coding purposes, let me take away that comment, because you'd want them to go look at the coding and everything else. They're going to have to do it one way or the other. So at the end of the day, they can either do it here, which is it's a much, I won't say it's simpler, but it does get the job done for you. And then that way you can go ahead, the minute it hits AP, there's no AP entry. So you just can go finalize, push those in to finalize those. And we can create another user that we send this to. Matter of fact, I can send these transactions into AP and push them immediately to finalize when I set up the import file. So I have that functionality as well. All right. So this is, I'm going to go ahead and if you guys want to unmute yourself, I will take some questions at the outside of what we just covered. That is the end of my presentation. So if you have any other questions, we would encourage you, if you want to go further with this, to do a one-on-one. This is kind of just an overview. We wanted to take 30, 40 minutes just to show you and introduce you to what we have here. We're really excited about our core cloud products and also our other products like Capture and Commander. And what we're doing, if you can appreciate this, if you guys you're used to doing AP, you've been given a product called AIM, which is an add-on to that used to be an add-on product. It now comes with every system we deliver on the TimberScan side. That AIM product is a true content manager. So what this does is this allows you to build those forms, mobilize the forms, and have them automatically flow into AIM so that you don't have to double touch or scan and index. We've got tons of different opportunities now with these products that can really streamline your operation. And our goal is to flatline that overhead cost. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to give you tools that empower your guys in the office to be, better, faster, and not have to work 60 hours to do it. How many customers do you actively use the credit card reconciliation module now? It's a relatively new product. Our first run at it was not a good run because we did some things in there that just didn't work in the field. We've now probably have 10 that are using it. We're selling a lot of them. So, they're coming out, we're starting to see more and more. We kind of put the brakes on it until we could, solve some of the work process problems. One of them was that they wanted to be able to have job grids. From a pricing standpoint, the core cloud system is a subscription service. So when you look at how we price this, you have to purchase core cloud systems. So for a 10-user system, you have an entry cost. Well, you have an entry cost, which we give you 10-user systems of $3,700 a year. Okay. Now, after that, every 10 users, and they're named users, are just $400 a year. So as you grow your system, like if you have 20 or 30 cards or whatever the case may be, your user cost it starts going down because it's only about $3 a user per year. Per month for the additional users after the first 10. Now, we also the credit card program is $1,500 a year, so that's on a subscription. And then there's some time. There's about 20 hours worth of time that you need to get so that we can customize it for you and make sure that everything's working. A user is anybody that's going to use the system. It's a named user. There's no concurrent, because you have to assign the credit card to the user. So if a person, every cardholder would definitely be a user for that. That's going to be each additional 10 user block is $400 a year. So that works out, 400 into 12 for 10. That would be $40 a month, or less than $38 a month or so. So it's about $3 and something a user per month. And then the initial is to get all the other integration components and things like that tied in. There's a setup piece. Even though it's in the cloud, we have integration components that have to be built in so that you can do job cost validation. That's why that first 10 users is critical, because we package up all of that in that initial buy. And then once you get all that set up, it can be deployed across all the forms. Okay. If there's no more questions or anything like that, I will close it out here. You can go to our website, and we have a presentation that you can review. It's core-asssoc.com. Let me make sure I'm right on that. So asssoc.com. And when you go to the website, we have some supporting information that you can get this from. We encourage you, if you would want to go and if you're interested in this, give us a shout, and we'll definitely do a one-on-one and get you guys into the system. So I appreciate your time. I will send you. Oh, great, Allison. Thank you very much. And you'll be getting an email from Allison, so she'll be taking care of that. Y'all have a good day, and look forward to talking with you guys in the future.